Scruffy Audio Network.
Hey, we're finally doing it here on a Friday. I got my main man here, 5-Star Preps. I can never get his last name right.
Smithey.
Smithy.
It's odd. It's an odd last name.
It's a crazy name. This is Jesse Smithey. I am so glad to sit down with you. If this guy is the guy that got me going on my podcast show.
I know. I feel like a proud parent right now. This has got to be what you feel like when you train your guys and you see them doing well. And we, I don't know when we started talking about doing your podcast, but you guys got even like better equipment than I got now. This soundboard over here and the mic cover, so it's awesome. Glad to see you doing well,
dude. It's and I, you guys know that I give them props every time because everybody's like, "How'd you get into doing these?" And I was like, well, "I was just doing it with Jesse." And I remember Helton walked in and started working out. And you're like, "Man, is that Todd?" And I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "I've been trying to get him on my show." He goes, "With all the people that you have coming through the Woodgym, you should let them tell you about their stories and start doing a podcast show." And then we took you to lunch, and then from there it was history. It was on. I
know. I mean, you had access to Harrison Smith and so many other guys that I'd been chasing. Like, I actually had to ambush Harrison at his own, kids camp out at Catholic with a mic just to get, 10 to 15 minutes with him to put on my podcast. So, yeah, you have access to all these guys, and everybody has a story. And that's the one thing that I've learned in journalism through the years is everybody has a story, and everybody's overcome something or whatever. And if you can get them to open up a little bit, you can find out that story, and it's usually pretty enlightening.
I'm so glad we got to do this, and I apologize for last Friday.
Ben,
there he is. Ben's in the shame corner. All right, so I always, Ben, don't let me. You never know, Ben. The question I always open up with all the athletes and CEOs and everybody that comes through here is, when did you know you were different? When did you know you wanted to do this 5-Star Prep? Because I knew you as, like you said, the journalist that with the Sentinel, and you've done a couple stories on me, which is always cool that this guy always reaches out to ask what's going on. When did you know you wanted to take this on? Because now it's blown up. It's the stuff.
Yeah, I worked at the newspaper at the News Sentinel for 12 years, from 2002 to 2014, and planned to stay there my whole career. But as you guys know, things are fluid in life. Things change, and the newspaper industry started to take a nosedive. And as I approached 40 with 2 kids, I had to start thinking about the future. And so I actually left the newspaper industry and got into synthetic turf sales. I never wanted to be in sales. I wouldn't call myself a natural salesman, but it was something that I was exploring and looking into. But I also stayed doing freelance media work just in case something like this ever popped up. And there were a couple of guys out in the community who weren't happy with the way media coverage was going. They wanted to start something new, and we all just started brainstorming. And I think you could tell early on that not only did we have a good chemistry and all kind of share the same vision, but we were passionate about it. And I would say the genesis of it all, I was covering a state football championship for Greenville, and just doing a random video with my phone, just holding it up. And before we got started, this kid said, "I've been watching your videos since I was like 8 or 9 years old. I've always wanted to be in this moment and be on one of your videos." And it was like the light bulb went off, where you felt like, maybe in the past I didn't feel like I was doing anything meaningful, but it does mean something to these kids to have a spotlight and to have a media outlet to really showcase them. And so it just kind of, I don't know, for some reason that statement cut through, and it's like, this is what I need to be doing. I didn't dream of covering high school sports when I was a young college student, but you grow to love it, and you grow to have a passion for it.
You could tell that you do this for a living because you're damn good on the mic, and you're positioned perfect, and the voice is amazing. We don't have to tell anybody to move up and fist away.
Yeah, I mean, it's Dave. I don't know if you remember Dave Hooker. He got us going with the News Sentinel Sports Page radio show right around the mid 2000s, and I was terrified to be on the mic. I mean, when you're a writer, you have all the time to press the delete button if you say something wrong or you phrase something wrong. But when you're doing live radio or whatever, it's out there and there's no going back. And so it's something that took a long time to get used to, for sure.
What year is this with 5-Star Prep?
This is just number 2. It feels like we've been around a long time. And while I tell people, look, we're new, but we have the most experienced staff in the state. That's just another way of calling ourselves old. But I've been doing it since I've been covering sports here in East Tennessee since 2002. And a few of my writers have been doing it for 30 some odd years. So we have a lot of history and a lot of trust built up through the years with these coaches and administrators and schools. But we debuted 5-Star Preps in May of 2018. So we're about a year and a half old.
That's crazy. I mean, because the exposure that you get, and like you said, those kids are like, hey, I was on 5-Star Prep. I mean, that says a lot. Now, you just covered a Thursday game, so take me through a typical Friday right now.
Sure. So, like, when we get done here, I'll go back home and take a nap. So,
seriously?
Yeah, because, like, I this year, we're in week 9 now. I haven't been to bed before 4 a.m. on a Friday night yet.
I remember you telling me that last week.
So I got to kind of build up my sleep hours during the day on a Friday, and then probably around 3 or 4 o'clock, I'll start packing up the car. We do a show on site called 5-Star Live, where we have a social media show. It's broadcast. You have highlights of the games. We have player interviews and coach interviews. So I'll pack up the car for all of that. We'll head out to the game site, start unloading all that stuff on the site. Tonight we're at Powell High School as they take on West, and then we'll cover the game. We'll shoot video of the game, and then right when it ends, we'll go live on 5-Star Live for about 30 minutes and talk with the winning coach and player and show some highlights of that game and other games. And we'll pack up around 11 o'clock. I'll head back home, and it's time to do some writing. And I have 4 or 5 other writers that are sending me stories and photographers sending me photos, and we got videos to produce and player of the week. So it's a long Friday night, and thankfully my wife lets me sleep. My kids let me sleep in on Saturday till about 10 o'clock. So I usually get about 5 or 6 hours sleep, and then it's moving on to the next week. I start sending out game assignments that weekend, so it's nonstop football all the time.
So like on a Friday at the football game, are you the head guy? Like, what's your role while the game's going on? Are you on the field walking around, or are you trying to figure out who you're going to pull for the show after? I'm usually
on the field with my video camera. I'm getting some highlight clips and stuff that we can roll as B-roll while we're talking about the game, or to put together a video for our site with a player interview. So I'm not always writing. Sometimes, if I have too much going on with 5-Star Live, I'll use one of our writers to cover that game. But last night, I covered the Farragut-Bearden game and wrote that up. And so it all depends. It's kind of a fluid situation.
So what time did you go to bed last night?
About 3 o'clock.
All right.
So we had playoff soccer. We had playoff volleyball. So there was a lot to handle last night.
I keep forgetting about that. You're just not covering football. You're going every sport, the baseballs, softballs, volleyballs, right? So it's just not Friday nights.
Well, that was one of the biggest complaints when I was in the turf sales, and people were complaining about the media, was we can't find enough information, not only on the marquee sport of football, but we can't even get box scores on volleyball games or girls soccer games. Parents and grandparents and kids still want to see their name in print. They understand you can't cover every game, but if you can make a little effort and just give them some type of notoriety, and that's what we do. I mean, some nights on a random Monday night, I can be up till midnight or 1 typing box scores for girls soccer or golf or volleyball, just to give those kids and our subscribers the know, kind of stay in the know of what's going on.
So it's more like a personal touch, right?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, whenever you find your passion, I'm sure you can attest to this. You'll do things above and beyond that don't seem like work, and so it just has become my normal routine. I don't see it as, oh, I'm doing this great thing for the kids tonight. It's just that's what you do when you own your own brand, when you own your own business. You can't work just a 40-hour week. It's plain and simple.
Yeah, so you don't have hours. You're not 8 to 5 starting Monday. You're doing work on Sunday, and then all through the week to get ready for the Thursday, Friday games. Or right now we're getting into, I just trained a couple volleyball girls this morning, getting ready for sub-state, state.
Yep.
So you got to carry that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, so state volleyball starts next week, and so we'll be monitoring that, and regional soccer's next week, and of course the state football playoffs start in 2 weeks, and so it all overlaps, and basketball is just right around the corner. So Yeah, there's no set schedule for a sports writer or a business owner anytime.
So it's not just the fall. See, for some reason, I always think fall football, high school, and it's not. Then it rolls into, like you said, the basketball and then the baseball. So your schedule is 365, right?
Right, yeah. There's no off season, and part of what we do at 5-Star Preps is a subscription model, and we know that football is king in Knoxville, and so to keep people on board for the entire year, subscribing and coming to our site, we do football all year round. I mean, it's recruiting, it's signing day, then the next thing you know, it's spring practice in March, and so we cover spring practice pretty heavily from March to May, and then in June you think you have time off, but you don't. There's 7-on-7 camps, and then there's all kind of things going on. So TSSAA is allowing them to practice a little bit in June. So, I mean, we have football all year long, but we're also covering in the spring baseball and track and softball and boys soccer. So tennis, we never take time off.
So even the 7-on-7 you cover.
Yeah, I mean, it's just Knoxville's full of football junkies, and we're football junkies, and that's our time to go see these kids, just raw talent, and say, okay, we're going to keep an eye on this guy. We like what we're seeing in 7-on-7. Let's see if that transitions when they put the pads on. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. We've seen kids disappear that we thought looked unbelievable in 7-on-7, and for whatever reason, once those pads comes on and it's contact time, they kind of reverse course a little bit.
Wow, and you that's pretty interesting. That's kind of neat. And so the 5-Star Prep, do you see yourself going, I wouldn't say another level, but moving over to something bigger, or do you really like what you're doing? I guess, let me give you an example. Is like, I'm a Woodgym guy. I'm going to stay a Woodgym guy. I'm 51. This is what I'm going to do. So, people always try to push you, or, where do you see yourself in the next 15, right where I am?
Yeah. It's, when we started it, we didn't want to pigeonhole ourselves by naming ourselves Knoxville Preps or just anything regional, because we do have aspirations of expanding. Newspapers are struggling not only in Tennessee but around the country. So right now we're still perfecting and ironing out wrinkles in our business model, how we operate and what our expenses are and how much money we can generate with subscriptions and sponsorships. And so we feel like if we can continue on that road, we can take this model and drop it into Middle Tennessee. Nashville is actually, when we look at our Google Analytics, our top market, and we don't even produce any mid-state content. We feel like it's all those transplants from Maryville or Alcoa or Farragut or Webb who are living in Nashville, this crazy growing populated city, and they're coming to our site. And so we're thinking about expanding 5-Star Preps into the mid-state or over into Memphis or into Chattanooga and possibly beyond the borders of Tennessee. But right now our passion and our concentration is on the greater Knoxville area, about 60 schools.
So this is just East Tennessee.
Right now,
or
it is.
Northeast or
yeah, we go up to Campbell County and over to Greenville, down to like the McMinn County area, and as far west is your Harriman Rockwoods.
Got it. So what would it take to get to the Nashville, the Memphis, the Chats, the Tri-Cities?
Yeah, it's we know the passion's there, the fan base is there. It's all about finding the right people and finding the right sponsorships in terms of working together. And we know, we've talked with some people in those markets. We feel like it's open to doing that, and we'll see if we can take it there. But it's, again, right now we don't want to ignore what we're doing here. We want to make sure it's perfect and it's running like it's supposed to before we ever, turn the keys, start the car in a different area.
Yeah, see, my entrepreneur starts thinking like...
I see you writing stuff down over there. I don't know what you're writing, but hopefully it's good.
Right, like Tennessee 5-Star Prep, know, and then, I was thinking like, who's all on your team right now? Like your employee staff of like, what is
so
it
we don't have employees. Everybody's an independent contractor. Okay. So we don't have like employees and health insurance and all that stuff. I mean, thank God my wife's a teacher at Farragut and we have insurance for myself and the kids. But right now it's the guys who are writing for me are guys that I trust. Mike Blackerby and Dave Link, they wrote for me for years at the News Sentinel. You're not going to find better journalists in East Tennessee. So, yeah, people aren't used to paying for high school content, but it's quality. And it's going to be better quality than anything you can find around these parts. And so when we do expand, when I say it's got to be the right guys, they have to have experience. They have to know coaches in that area for us to bring them on as part of the family.
Right. So when you're saying pay for the right content, what do you mean?
Well, Prep Extra, which I used to run at the New Sentinel, it was always free. You know, people could get on there and read game stories and look at videos and photos. And so we kind of set the trend now of this is how we're going to provide content for you guys by you helping us pay for these freelancers and the quality that you're getting. So
they pay to subscribe to
they
5
pay,
Star.
yeah. It's $6.99 a month, $1.75 a week, however you want to look at it. And we offer savings on a year-long subscription. And
told you, man.
Yeah, so it's different. It definitely has a lot of people intrigued. There's some people that didn't want to get on board at first, but I think over time they realized the amount of content we're putting out, the quality of content we're putting out is worth paying for.
So at $6.99, what was the other one?
For a year, it's $69.99. So you save about $14 by signing up for a year.
But didn't you have two costs? $6.99,
well, you know, when you break down $6.99, it's not like you can pay per week, but I mean that's what it breaks down to.
I got you. So $6.99 a month, and that gets you what is that?
All our articles, our stats, our box scores, just premium content, recruiting content. I mean, we're covering 4 or 5 games every Friday night.
I mean, that's cheaper than a newspaper.
Yeah, it's cheaper than...
And you get so much more.
Yeah, we're probably knocking out anywhere from 15 to 20 articles a week, and plus all of our stat leaders and box scores and just everything else we're putting out. So it's an unbelievable deal.
That is really cool because you look at other ones and they're 10 to 20, you know. So you go from... And you know all the numbers of how many subscribers, and then you could look at that number and then look at this and go, okay, we could go expand to Nashville with this. Or, I mean, do you see it moving that way?
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, that's. I mean,
you're only the second year, which still blows me away because your jacket that you have on and you brand yourself great. We talk about brands all the time with different people or influencers here that. Your brand is important, and that's a perfect brand. Like people see 5 Star, and I think Jesse.
I hated our logo when we first got it. We were designing the website and with VO Design here in Knoxville, and they were helping us create a logo. And I said, I'm a big logo guy. I love your logo. I think it's awesome. I think it's recognizable. You know who it is when you see it. I go to golf courses and you see their logo and you want that hat because you know when people see that logo, they're going to know that you've been there. And so when we got our logo, I wasn't crazy about it. It just didn't give me all the feels. You know, it didn't have me excited about it. But as time wore on and we had to pick one, I picked this logo and now we're out in the community. When people see it, they know who we are. I was interviewing your guy, Gabe Hensley, last night, and there are kids around me and saw the crest on my shirt and they knew it was 5 Star, and I could hear 5 Star just in the periphery while we're doing interviews. So, yeah, in the year and a half, we've grown like crazy. Our social media channels are blowing up, and that just gives us hope for possibly doing this in the future elsewhere.
And that's got to make you feel so good when you're interviewing a guy like Gabe and you hearing people say that, and, you know, because it still to this day, somebody's like, hey, I saw somebody wear a shirt. Do you know what this person? I'm like, no, you know, I don't know.
Yeah, and I'll interview a kid, and it seems like all they want to care about is, you know, getting their picture on our Instagram page or, you know, whatever. And so that's like the hot thing for them right now.
But you're helping them so much. So
yeah.
It's a twofold. It feels so good. Your business, you could tell, is taking off and growing, and the brand is there, and the recognition, the notoriety is there. And then all of a sudden the kid's like, man, I was on 5 Star Prep.
Yeah.
You know?
We got people sending us requests all the time. Can you put my video on here? Can you put my picture on there? Can you help me out with my recruiting? And it's a good problem to have. We can't meet all those requests, certainly, because it would kind of dilute what we do. And when we promote a kid, it's because we believe in his ability. We don't want to just throw random prospects out because they asked us to. When we say, hey, coaches are missing out on this kid, it's because we really evaluated him and we believe that. So we do have to have a little bit of tact about what we do. We don't want to just, again, flippantly throw out people and say, oh, this kid, y'all are missing on this kid. And then he's, averaging 8 points a game and has a 10-inch vertical and whatever. So, we do things with tact and with strategy.
Yeah, and that leads me into a couple other questions. If you could, is it hard? Do you, I wouldn't say judge or evaluate, but like the top 3 to 5 prospects in KIL in football? Could you give those to me, or is that too broad, or is that, do you have to break down the private schools to the number one name in Knoxville right now would be?
Well, I think a lot of people are looking at Tyler Barron over at Catholic because he's uncommitted right now. So there's a lot of interest in his recruiting. We don't get defensive linemen in the Knoxville area with his frame that look like that very often. Oftentimes they're 6 feet, they're 280, and they're the Jesse Mahalona type.
Right.
Tyler Barron is your prototype type of frame and build to him. So that's why people at Tennessee are excited, or Ohio State are excited, or Oklahoma are excited about the possibility of him coming to their schools. But then you have guys like Brian Tucker over at Catholic, who's an Under Armour All-American, going to Clemson. You have T. Hodge out at Maryville, who's committed to Tennessee. And there's a kid that I'm high on right now that I've written an article about, and some people love it, some people hate it, is this kid Holden Willis at Greenback. He's 6'4", he's 210 pounds, and he plays 1A football. And
well, see, that's what I'm digging. That's what the 5-star is.
Yeah.
Is like, you're like, because you named all those kids that have come through here, the Catholic kids and the Maryville kid, and the other running back from Maryville's been through here. His father played professional baseball with the Pirates out of Alcoa. What's the other kid's name? You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, my mind's going blank. And I left.
But the Greenback kid, I don't know who the hell that is.
Yeah,
That's what's awesome about your 5-star prep, correct?
Yeah, and when you see him, man, he just screams potential.
And how'd you find him?
Just covering sports through the years. And then you see highlights here and there. I don't really remember how I ever became cognizant of Holden Willis, but
where the hell is Greenback? Is it on the other side of Maryville?
Yeah, it's a little south, or it's close to Maryville, and very, very close to Maryville. And
isn't there like a Halloween farm there? Like,
maybe, I don't know.
I love my segues.
Oh, man.
You better have that on the that thing where I went, holy moly. You better.
But I wrote a column to Jeremy Pruitt about, hey, you need to come see this kid. I did it last year with Thomas Harper from Carnes, who you know, and now he's out playing at Oklahoma State. Why didn't Tennessee offer him? Why? I don't. It's inexplicable. And now Holden Willis is 1,000 yards receiving on about 30 catches, 17 touchdowns receiving. And again, I know it's 1A football, but the kid showed up on a whim at the regional opening in Murfreesboro, wasn't invited, so he had to go earn his way.
What's a regional opening?
So the opening by Nike, those are like
a high school combine?
Yeah, and then they have this premier event called the opening. I think they did it in Dallas this year, and it's your best of the best show up for this national combine. Well, Holden Willis didn't get invited to even just the combine. So he goes, he pays his entry fee, doesn't really train for it. Well, he's 6'4", 210. He goes in, runs a 4.6. He jumps 37 vertical, and just puts up unreal numbers. Well, he earns an invite to the next day and ends up being, one of the top 7 or 8 wide receivers listed, and beating guys that are committed to Ohio State and some of these other premier programs around the state, and just think about what he would have done had he trained and really had weeks to prepare for that event. And so that really kind of put him on the map further, and now he's taking a trip down to Mississippi State this weekend for their game against LSU.
Well, Jesse, that hit on something just watching you talk about that, and the passion in your eyes and voice about kids like that is I forget that Jesse and I have had some history before with a couple kids that you brought over here, the basketball kid, and even another kid, I forgot his name, but he even comes to me, he's like, hey, Charlie, you might be in a position now to help me sponsor this kid. He can't afford it, but you know, I'm tagging him one of my guys, and I think that's kind of unique. That's even special. What you're doing is trying to help not only 5-star preps and the recognition, and it keeps a salary. Like you talk about with what we do is you go overboard. You know, you go over the 8 to 5 and go like the greenback kid.
Yeah. So it's just through time you develop personal relationships with these players, and as you know, sometimes the deck can get stacked against you in life, whether it's in the recruiting world or whether you get to college and a coaching change happens and all of a sudden you're a bad fit for that program. Things can happen, and I've seen it happen a number of times, and I don't go to bat for every kid. I've had a lot of people approach me after what you and I did for Dre Matthew, and he's doing fantastic now, playing basketball overseas and getting some G League looks again. So, and I told Dre, I said, I wouldn't have done this for every kid. You made an impression on me, and what you've gone through in your life has just been extraordinary. You need a break. And I've been fortunate and blessed to have been in this area long enough to know people and have a little bit of a network that I could possibly reach out and help. And it just kept going and going and going until we finally got him where he needed to be. And
like a greenback kid, I'm still amazed that, like, what did you cover a game?
Again, I don't remember how I saw him first, but I know last year he kind of blew up as a junior, ended up having an unfortunate, I think a collarbone injury in the playoffs that pretty much kept Greenback from winning a state title. But I don't remember when I ever first became aware of Holden Willis, but I got to know his family and I got to know him just from the articles and videos and Player of the Week, and you know that he's capable. And I really think this kid, once he's a multi-sport athlete, so if he gets to college on a Division I level or whatever level he ends up choosing, when he solely focuses on football and goes through the weight training, this guy is going to be something else.
So he's untapped.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So, I mean, he plays basketball. I think he's going to play baseball. And so that 6'4", 210 frame could really be a 6'4", 230 frame. And that's scary to think what he could do.
So he's a multi-sport athlete.
Yeah. And he's just one of those. I'm not going to call him a good old boy because that makes him sound like a redneck, because he's not that at all, but just loves sports and just being outside. And it's not all about his phone and being on social media. And you just got to respect a kid like that.
And so he's a senior.
He's a senior, yeah, and just probably going to be a Mr. Football candidate, I would assume, there in 1A. And we'll see if Mississippi State puts an offer in front of him, because I know there's a number of schools like Texas and North Carolina that have gotten a hold of his film and started reaching out. So he's just kind of right there on the cusp of blowing up.
He sounds familiar. Has he ever come through here?
I know he's had a brother, Hunter Willis, that played some sports. He may have come through here. I think I might have talked to his mom about you, and I can't remember what she said. I have to go back and look at my messages, but he may have.
I mean, a greenback kid. But again, that's what the 5-star does. It's helping, like you said, even the Thomas Harper that you had to do. I mean, that kid's special. I mean, he was training in here, like I told you, Jesse, 3 days a week in season, in football season, and in the morning. Yeah,
and you can tell that by just spending a day around a kid that they're a little different than everybody else. They're wired a little bit differently in terms of how they approach things from a mental side. There are a lot of people that have great physical talent, but do they have the work ethic and the mental drive to get to that next level? And Thomas Harper was special. Nobody was stopping that kid through the first 5 or 6 weeks last year. He was averaging about 200 yards a game. I mean, he was on pace to just set up insane numbers from a receiving standpoint. He's playing defensive back at Oklahoma State. And then there was a quarterback injury. He kind of had to help out there, and I kind of put his Mr. Football season on pause for a bit. But great kid, great family, and glad to see him doing well.
Yeah, no, you meet his mom, and you're like, okay, I get it. And then the brother was coming in a little, and he's a D-end at Oklahoma State.
Yeah, he's kind of opened up the doorway, also from Carnes, and to come out of Knoxville and go ahead and kind of set the path for Thomas. I think that helped Thomas even more, just to to know that he can go there where he has family and he's going to get treated right. Mm-hmm. And he's going to have an opportunity to play. That's what makes kids nervous. They get sold a bill of goods during the recruiting process, and you don't know if that's going to happen for you or not. But the fact that he had a family member there and could attest to what was going to happen at Oklahoma State for him had to make him feel good. So throughout the preseason, you could see all these articles about coaches raving about Thomas Harper, and we're like, look, we try to tell you. Why isn't Tennessee offering this kid? It's okay if he doesn't commit to Tennessee, but we all have the Randall Cobb story, right? We all know that story. And while he never really burned Tennessee win-wise, he still went on to have a great career in the NFL. And those are guys you want to be able to brag about if you're Tennessee. But not every kid's going to choose Tennessee, but it's at least you can say, look, we offered him. He just didn't want to come here.
I mean, Thomas Harper, he's a special kid. He graduated early to go over to spring, and then there was a big clip that one of the parents sent over me from Carnes that the head coach was getting interviewed after spring practice or through spring practice, and he said that Thomas Harper kid looks like he's coming on strong, and the guy was like, who's the head coach there?
Gundy.
Gundy was like, guy. He's the mullet guy. He played there though, right?
Yeah.
So he goes, he's coming on really strong, and he's really advanced and physical. And one of the reporters said, "Well, doesn't he work with an NFL combine trainer in Knoxville?" And he goes, "I don't give a hell where he works, how he works. He's very physical and gets it." And that's a kid that, like you said, I mean, to graduate early, to get over there early, and people aren't picking up on it. I mean, even a Pennington, my guy, one offer from Marshall. I know maybe he was a little bit undersized or whatever, but he turned out okay.
Yeah, he turned out very okay. And I don't know, what are your thoughts? And I'm used to kind of running the conversation, so I'm going to flip it on you.
Yeah. What
are your thoughts in terms of training these kids and getting them ready for high school and for getting ready to go to college early, a semester early? Has that had to change any way you prepare them?
Yeah, no. I mean, like you said, they're already special anyway, so almost sitting around, for another spring when they're coming in 3 days a week. I mean, hell, the lovely lady sitting out there, she's going to graduate early to get on to go to school also. So, but look, it's 9:00 and she's out there grinding. So it's that same character personality as the Thomas Harpers of the world are like, they're already so mature, advanced. It's almost the opposite, where you hold them back and they're 18, 19 as a senior, where some of these kids are like, let me get on campus at 17 because I'm ready.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you say?
It's odd. It's the trend now. And it's almost like if you don't midterm enroll, what are you doing? Why aren't you helping out this football team? You need to get on campus now and learn the playbook and go through an off-season training and conditioning and strength program. And what's the matter with you? Yeah. I remember texting Brian Tucker, again, the lineman from Catholic, and I was at a 7-on-7 thing in the summer, and there were some other linemen there watching. I was like, where are you at, man? And, hey, I'm at home taking these classes. I'm studying. I'm midterm enrolling at Clemson, and I got a lot of work to do. So they're sacrificing their summer. A lot of times they can just be joking around and having fun, and they're putting in 8-9 hour days studying and doing tests, and so it's a different ball game now.
It is, and I would say maybe the dual athlete that's playing baseball, like Martin, the kid,
Caden Martin.
He trains with me some. Well, he's a football, baseball, and loves them both. So you get when that kid's probably a senior, he's probably going to have to stay around or maybe not pick. But that's another thing that you cover. That I'm huge on an athlete if he could do more than one sport. What do you think about that?
I like it. I think anytime you can kind of break outside of your normal routine of movements, and I can't remember when the genesis of this began, but I can remember watching some maybe feature stories on an ESPN about how these guys are doing yoga now and really stretching out and attacking muscle groups that maybe they're not used to using in that respective sport. So I think it's always going to help you round into a better athlete and keep your body strong for a lot longer. And it's just good to also just take a break from your normal grind, whether you're going out just to play baseball for fun and help your high school baseball team. I think it's only going to help. I like it. I saw Brett Kendrick, who played offensive line at CAK in Tennessee, played basketball. And I thought that was fantastic to see a big 6'3", 325 guy out there on the perimeter stroking threes. And so I like it. I see it a lot more. I think there's a movement now. You see a lot more people pushing for that to be multi-sport athletes.
Well, I mean, and I push for that too. So you could go the way of not being money hungry and growing the business at 51. I'm like, all right, I'm there, 29 years in May of doing it. So you're always have I have the parents come and go, well, he could play basketball or train with you. Play basketball. Mm-hmm. Come see me after, or maybe come in once a week or not 3 days a week. And, they did the study with the NFL draft. What was it? 89% of the guys drafted played multiple sports. Mm-hmm. And they talk about that all the time, that the body doesn't get hurt and it changes. And that's what we've lost is, I might be taken away from my business, but we've lost that because everybody's like, let me get so sport specific with this one sport instead of going to play sports. And me now being this podcast self-acclaimed guru, I'm listening to these podcasts and they talked about the soccer teams and how Brazil is so good over everybody else because they don't play soccer year round in a structured sports setting. They go outside because they usually don't have the travel teams and everything else to play like that and not think outside the box of these plays. And they go outside and play, and they find when they come over to play, they're much more creative with their skills. Does that make sense?
No, it absolutely does. And I just think people for a while got so crazed about getting that scholarship. It was, as you mentioned, people were just specialized in sports, and I feel like I have to do everything all year long to get that scholarship or to stay in the spotlight, that they did themselves a disservice in terms of what they did to their bodies physically. So I'm glad there's an awareness now for these athletes to take a break. Don't play baseball all year long. You're going to grind yourself down to a pulp, and by the time you do get to college, you're going to be burnt out. So and I see it all the time, just that the travel ball can consume you.
But here's your other thing, calling people to the mat, which I'm known for. So I'll fire my shots, stand in line if you don't like me. But when coaches say you can't play another sport,
it's happened.
It's happening.
And it's happened, and maybe they don't state it in those terms. Maybe they encourage it in a certain way.
But I tell you what, I see some damn good athletes that come through here that are playing one sport and they're like, oh my gosh. And I was like, dude, you're a good athlete. You could walk on the field right now and play safety, wide receiver, or vice versa, or whatever. And it's like, why?
Yeah, that's like I say, I think it consumes them. They're afraid that if they take a few months off and they're not in this travel league and they're not in this showcase, that they're going to get missed. They're not going to get that scholarship. And I just don't think that's the case. I think that you got to take a break. You got to prevent burnout. If you really love that sport, then you need to take the measures that you can to prevent burnout.
Well, I would say my biggest three Knoxville guys that made it to the pros and, Hall of Famers, all pros, all stars, Chad Pennington, Todd Helton, Harrison Smith, that I could, name off the top of my head. They all played 2 sports and more. Harrison played 3. He ran track. You don't play track, you run it, and basketball and football. So, why can't I still don't understand why you just can't be an athlete.
Again, I think it's all tied back to fear. I think they're afraid that if they take 2 months off to play a certain sport, that their skill set's going to drop. And then now they got to work all the way hard to get it back up to where it needs to be in time for fill in the blank. Mm-hmm. And so if they stay grind all year long, they're always ready just in case some certain school shows up. And I get it. It's changed. And nowadays what you do during the regular season of your high school sport doesn't matter that much in terms of recruiting anymore. I don't see coaches from Oklahoma and Tennessee on the sidelines that much. They have so much on their plates now in the college realm that's why they have all these off-season camps to get these guys on campus. They can see them in person. I like him. Let's offer him, and him. And now it's move on to the next class. They don't have time to evaluate in season. So I understand why people are grinding year long, because opportunities come outside the the parameters of your high school season. And that's terrible. I hate that. What you do on the football field doesn't matter as much in terms of getting a scholarship as it used to. So I understand why they grind year long, but you got to be strategic about, hey, this is my downtime. I got to decompress here and recover and what have you.
And this, talking about the sport that we haven't talked about much are the soccer athletes. Most of my soccer athletes back in the day when I trained Chad and that group of people, the soccer athletes were the track stars for the 800 and 400, and now they're not. They're soccer year round.
Right.
I mean, that is the buses are loaded across the street here at that field, loaded and gone from Thursday to Sunday. I mean, year round. I don't know one soccer athlete that I train that doesn't that's all they play is soccer.
Wow. Yeah, I can't think of, now that you mention it, I can't think of a crossover much. I know there was a kid at Bearden, Caleb Wilkins, who was a star running back and a star soccer player for Bearden, but the examples like that are few and far between.
Few and far between. And I just encourage the athletes, if they can, if the coaches allow it, and, they have their own rules and philosophy behind that, but it's like, you look at some of these kids and you're like, you should easily be playing 3 sports. Because like you said, Jesse, you only have high school once. I mean, we could sit in here and go, high school memories of playing are amazing. And now it's even, like you said, downplayed of the high school. I know for volleyball, it's like, oh, you get signed off travel. Mm-hmm. You don't even worry. But like the Catholic Webs, the Farragut, Bearden, volley, you'll have those the rest of your life, the rivalries.
Yeah, and that's what I see it more in tennis and kind of individual sports, golf and tennis, where the star players skip a lot of high school regular season stuff.
I see that too.
They're out playing in a AJGA or some other tennis organization.
They're not even playing for the team.
Yeah, and then they'll show up for the postseason. Mm-hmm. And that's sad a little bit.
You miss so much camaraderie of having that. That's totally different than what we're talking about of like a Thomas Harper moving ahead. He's so advanced and so driven. Why hold him back? But like you said, I see that a lot with tennis. That's a good call.
Yeah, and I'm a golf nut. I see it a lot in golf. And again, I understand why they're doing it, because they're putting themselves in a position where they're going to be competing against the nation's best in said tournament, wherever they are. But my fondest memories in the sport now are the times that I had up around the clubhouse after a regular season golf match with my buddies, or on the bus home on basketball trips or whatever. So they do miss out a little bit on that, and I think at some point in their lives they'll probably regret that. But they're out trying to earn that scholarship, earn that amateur ranking, and just stay atop their game. And again, there's part of that I respect, but also part that I wish that they would just kind of step back and enjoy it a little bit more.
And, we go back to having fun, and I just hope they're having fun, because when it's all said and done at those ages, even here, we try to make all the training fun. Everybody walks away going, hey, it's fun. You're doing 5-star, it's fun. It has to be fun for you to be good at it, and you just hope that it's not too much work, whether it's from the parents, coaches themselves, the pressure that everybody puts on from social media of like, I got to be the best of the best, instead of just like you just said that was kind of cool, of like sitting up in the clubhouse after with your buddies. Mm-hmm. I mean, you really, and the trips on the bus, you don't hear that anymore.
I remember that more than any match I played. I remember the conversations in the car on the bus on the way to games more than I remember any play or any outcome of a game. And so that's the stuff that you cherish and that you hope for kids now.
That's pretty cool. Well, Jesse, man, I know you got to get your sleep.
Yeah, it's almost nap time.
And I can keep talking. This is awesome. It's almost nap time. Thanks so much for coming by, man. I appreciate it. And what you're doing is amazing, and I hope it only grows. And I can't believe it's been less than 2 years of the progress of that. That is absolutely amazing.
Well, I appreciate you giving me an opportunity to come on the podcast, and appreciate what you've done for me and for some of the athletes that I've brought to you through the years, and just can't speak any more highly of the place, of the Woodgym. It's actually a decent temperature in here today. I'm thankful for that. It's like a normal temperature.
It actually worked out. You're not losing weight by just walking through.
I'm not sweating, and I was able, and I'm comfortable in here today for a change.
we real quick, we had Big Jim Haslam on, what was it, 2 Fridays ago? And we were talking forever and knowing the guy so long and having story after story. And everybody was like, oh, it was so fun. We could have talked forever. Why'd you stop? And I was like, well, I looked over at his assistant and the makeup was running down her face. And I was like, we should shut it down right now.
Yep. Time to go.
Time to go. All right, Jesse, man. Thank you. Have a great weekend.
Yeah, you too, man.
Thanks.